And we're live.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting for Monday, January the 23rd. We have a couple of parts to the meeting tonight. We have a committee of adjustment meeting that we'll get to first before we get into the regular council agenda. We have a minor variance and a consent application to consider. With that one, I don't think that'll take us too long. So I'll call the committee of adjustment meeting to order at 6:31. Tonight, we do have a public meeting, which is being held under sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act to consider a consent application and a minor variance. The minor variance is for the property located at 402 First Avenue East. And the purpose and effect of the application is to request relief from sections 4.2.2 of the zoning bylaw in order to facilitate the lot severance through the consent application, which we'll also consider. The minor variance minor variance application rather is seeking relief from the regulation, which requires a minimum rear yard of 7.5 meters to permit a reduced rear yard of 7.2 meters. The related consent application is for the same property, obviously, 402 First Avenue East. And the purpose and effect of this application is to create a new residential lot having a minimum lot area of 464 square meters and approximately 20.3 meters of frontage onto Jelly Street to allow for the future construction of a new single detached dwelling. So with that, I will ask the clerk to provide the method of notice for tonight's public meeting.
Notice of tonight's public meeting was advertised in local media sources. Notice is posted on the Town of Shelburne website, and property owners within a 60-meter radius have received notification.
Thank you. So we'll have a presentation from our town planner, Steve Weaver. I think he'll go through both applications at the same time because they deal with the same property. He'll provide a summary of any written comments that have been received. And then after that, there'll be an opportunity for members of the committee to ask questions, as well as any members of the public who may have signed in. So Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Chair Mouse. I will share my screen. I have a few slides just to quickly go through to provide a bit of information about the application. Did that come up okay?
Yep.
All right. So you'll find the details of this application are summarized in my report, P 2023-01 in the agenda package. As noted by the chair, there are two applications before you tonight, and both relate to the same property and were filed by Fern Osborne, the applicant for 402 First Avenue East. And I believe the applicant is on the meeting tonight as well, should you have any questions directly for the applicant. So the subject property is located at the northeast corner of First Avenue East and Jelly Street. It is in kind of the edge of a single detached neighborhood in that area. The homes are many decades old there, but are not turn of the century, heritage homes. They are bordering on a higher density area that's located to the west, where you have some medium density fourplex units along the west side of Jelly Street to the northwest, and some apartments to the southwest in the former hospital building. And then, of course, to the east, it transitions into more of a lower density area. You can see across the road from the subject property, there's a vacant property located here. That lot was severed a few years ago, similar to the proposed severance, and has since been built upon. So there is a single detached dwelling located there. So the application before you tonight very much mimics that previous application across the road by a different applicant a few years ago. And I think that corner lot severance was a good example of a successful kind of infill severance that fits reasonably well into the neighborhood. Just to give you a sense of the existing dwelling on the property, it is a bungalow or single story. It's the lots in this area are a bit wider, and the homes are not as deep as you see in some of the newer subdivisions. That leaves lots of room in the backyard. You can see in the bottom image there, it doesn't even capture the entire backyard. But behind the shed there is essentially the size of another lot. And that's the applicant's intent, is kind of behind that shed to build eventually, or make a lot available to build a new home. There are some trees on the property, some of which will require removal or relocation. It does look like that lot should be buildable without any major mature tree removals. Depending on where the driveway is sited on that new lot, if it's approved, the existing hydro pole may need to be relocated. That's something the applicant would have to work out with Hydro One. And we would also have to make sure that the street lighting is still adequate in that area if it is relocated. So this is a survey plan, some from many years ago, that was used by the applicant to kind of sketch out approximately the boundaries of the proposed lot. The severed lot shown in red, it would be sized just large enough to meet the minimum lot area requirement of the R2 zone, which applies to the property, and that minimum lot area is 464 square meters. The green area shows the lot that would then remain with the existing home, and it would be approximately 570 square meters. So we did a zoning analysis of the proposed severed lot and the retained lot. The details of the home that might be sited on the severed lot haven't been provided yet, but the applicant has proposed that it would comply with the zoning requirements. So this just assumes that the minimum yard requirements would be met. In fact, I think I do have some of the numbers reversed. So the severed lot would be 464 square meters as noted, leaving 570 with the retained lot. The minimum lot frontage is 15 meters for an interior lot. And so the severed lot, as shown here, would have frontage on Jelly Street. And that would meet the minimum lot frontage requirements with about 20.3 meters of frontage provided. The retained lot would be left with a little less than 23 meters of frontage, but that would be as it is today, with the frontage being down on First Avenue here. These are the numbers that I reversed. So in fact, the existing home has a minimum front yard of 8.1 meters. So this number should be over here. The new home on the severed lot would be 6 meters back from Jelly Street as a minimum. The exterior side yard requirement does not apply to the new lot because it would not be a corner lot. The existing house on the retained lot does meet the minimum exterior side yard of 4.5 meters, and no changes to that are proposed. Again, the new home would meet the minimum side yard of 1.2 meters, and on the retained lot, the existing home has a side yard of 2.1 meters. The new home would have to meet the 7.5 meter rear yard requirement on the severed lot. But in order to achieve the minimum lot area requirement for the severed lot, there would be a small reduction required for the rear yard of the retained lot. So in conjunction with the severance application, the applicant has filed for minor variance, seeking a reduction of 0.3 meters to the required minimum rear yard. And I did reverse these numbers as well. So on the severed lot, the maximum lot coverage is 35%. So the new home would be 35% or less relative to the lot area. And the existing home on the retained lot would only be about 23% of the lot area. So we did review in our report the applicable policies and did a bit of a planning analysis of the application, and we found that it is in keeping with the policies, and it's very similar to many previous corner lot severances that have been previously approved by the committee. The standard conditions would apply so that the applicant would have to obtain a copy of the Secretary Treasurer certificate. That's the last condition that gets satisfied once all of the others are completed. A payment of cash in lieu of parkland at 5% of the value of the severed lot would be required. And that's again a standard condition. This will come to council before a final approval if it's conditionally approved by the committee tonight, because a consent agreement would need to be authorized to deal with some of the finer details prior to construction of the new home. So A site servicing, drainage, and access plan would be required. If the existing shed needs to be relocated, that would be dealt with in the agreement. The location of a new driveway and where required parking would be provided on the severed lot would be dealt with in a more detailed plan. If there are tree removals and any replacements required, again, that would be dealt with in the consent agreement. While it's not in a heritage area or an area that's characteristic of historic homes, we are recommending that some basic design guidelines should be applied just to make sure the new home fits in the area in terms of overall design. And then if there are any fees associated with the consent agreement, those would have to be paid as well. The minor variance goes hand in hand with this consent, so we're recommending the two be linked together by way of conditions. A survey reference plan would have to be provided for the final lot dimensions, and all of that would have to be satisfied within 2 years. And then just quickly on the minor variance, I've just identified on the severance plan, this is the location of the new rear yard of the retained lot. If the severance is approved, it would be reduced, instead of meeting the 7.5 meters, it would require a rear yard of 7.2 meters. In previous severances, the committee has approved through rezoning or through minor variance. Rezoning dealt with that council, minor variance at the committee. Rear yards as low as 6 meters. So from a planning perspective, I was comfortable with a 0.3 meter reduction of the rear yard to accommodate the full lot area of the severed lot. Just one condition for the variance, again, linking it back to the consent. So if the consent is not finally registered and the conditions of the consent are not addressed, then the minor variance becomes unnecessary and would no longer apply. But if the final approval of the consent is obtained by the owner, then the minor variance would be deemed to be approved as well. I've summarized the comments received. I'll just stop sharing my screen there. Summarize the comments received in my report. There were no objections to the approval of the application. There were no public comments on the application. And we are, of course, here tonight to receive any public comments that may come up. And we did receive kind of the standard agency responses, so no issues were flagged. I have noted in my report that with respect to servicing, there are perhaps a couple of options in terms of the sanitary connection. One would be to connect it down to First Avenue, where there's an existing sanitary sewer along First Ave. That's where the water connection would have to be made. The other option for the sanitary connection is there's a manhole just to the north, which extends down from the next street and a short distance down Jelly Street. And that's in fact the one that the lot across the road connected to, and that may be the more cost-effective option for this lot as well. Ultimately, those details would be finally set out in the consent agreement and the lot servicing and grading plan. So with that, I'll pause there for any questions or comments, and I'd be happy to try and answer them for you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Any questions from the committee? Member Donato?
Just a quick question. The Besley drain goes through there. Does that in any way affect the lot itself?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So it's not actually the Besley drain. There's like a storm drain or an open ditch in the unopened rear lane behind the lot, and that drains into the Besley drain eventually. There's nothing been flagged there in terms of, there's no floodplain or erosion issues associated with that. The main restriction, of course, is that unopened lane can't be used for any kind of access because it does serve a stormwater management function, draining the area. So it'd have to be left as an open drain the way it is now. And that would mean that access would have to be directly from Jelly Street.
Okay. And no issues with fencing if the new owner decides to fence along that area with the open drain?
No, nothing's been raised there. They could put a fence kind of along that lot line with the rear lane. I think the storm drain itself is confined within the 6-meter town right of way. If there was any grading or anything proposed up to that lot line, we'd require it to not disturb the stormwater management or the storm drain in the town property. So that they would have to match grade, but otherwise, no real restriction there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? Jennifer, were there any public members signed on?
No, sir. No public members registered for this evening's meeting.
Okay. All right. So we'll deal with these two applications in turn. We'll deal with the consent application first. The recommendation from our planner is to approve the consent application based upon the conditions that Steve set out. Is there somebody who'd like to move and second that? Okay, moved by member Bonato, seconded by member Gashardi. I won't read through the whole resolution again, but again, it is based just upon the conditions that our planner stipulated. Okay, so we have a mover and seconder for that. Any further discussion on it? All in favor? That's carried. And the second one is for the minor variance application. So again, the recommendation is to grant the relief sought based on one condition, that being the approval of the consent. Is there a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Bonato, seconded by member Fegan. Any discussion on that one? All in favor? That's carried as well. Okay. Anything else, Steve?
That's it for the committee. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Vern.
I have a question.
Sure.
It said on there, things had to be done within 2 years. I don't know how long I'm going to be living here, but I hope it's at least 8 or 10 years, and I'm not doing anything with the back lot until I'm going to sell the house.
So what that means, and Steve can probably clarify it more, you don't have to develop it or sell it within 2 years. You just have to go through the process to finalize the severance within the 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I don't have to do anything with it.
No. So as long as the severance is done, you could sit on it for a long time. That's right. Yeah.
Until they carry me out of here.
All right. Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Well, then we'll adjourn the Committee of Adjustment meeting. And we'll switch gears and call our regular council meeting to order at 6:49. So we'll begin, as we always do, with playing the national anthem. So if you can stand, please do.
Right here.
All right, we'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. And it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. And we would encourage everyone to review the call to action information, which is located at the website, which is shown on the screen. Just a reminder to members of their duty to declare any pecuniary interest that they may have in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. And on to adoption of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from our January 9th regular council meeting? Moved by Councillor Fegan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hall. Any discussion on those? All in favor? Carried. Public question period. Jennifer, are there any questions from the public?
No questions received. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any members of the public on to ask questions?
There are not, no.
Okay.
Sorry. I believe, sorry.
Okay, I was going to say, I thought I saw.
Linda Buffett.
Linda Buffett is on. My apologies.
Okay. Hi, Linda.
There.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep.
Okay, good.
Can't see you, but we can hear you.
That's okay. Okay, so my question is related to the report that the CIO has outlined that's further on the agenda.
Mhm.
And so it relates to the list of some of the applications that would be coming before, have come before council for future development. And one in specific is the Southbridge Care long-term care application that is planned. And that application has 128 new beds, and the province has granted funding in the last year, but now this project is in jeopardy because the purchase of the land needs to be approved in the next few months. And the timeline that's in the CEO's report for a response back from the province is not until June. And so I'm just wondering if there's any way that this report could have a date that would be March of this year as opposed to June. And given the fact that the province gave nobody any opportunity to make any comments on the legislation because we were in the midst of a municipal election, nobody could have done anything any sooner until now. And that leaves everybody, as you know, in an awkward position to deal with the matter.
Okay. So I think, Linda, specifically what you're referring to is the section of that recommended resolution that requests some information back from the province with respect to how they're going to make municipalities whole.
Yeah.
As a result of DC changes. Okay.
Yeah.
So when we get to that section, I mean, I certainly have no issue with advancing that date from June to March, or next week for that matter.
Yeah.
But when we get to that portion of the agenda, whoever makes the motion, we'll try to accommodate that.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Excellent.
Continue watching.
Okay. Thank you.
Wait, sorry, just while Linda's here. So when we pick the date, I just want to clarify that likewise, we could have picked March, we could have picked next week, as you know. We
Yeah,
thought
that's
that would
good
give
too.
the province enough time, but we also anchored that with our budget process for 2024. And usually we're starting the budget in August, and why we wanted to bring a report back to you. But certainly there's no reservation whatsoever on behalf of staff if you want to move that date up. So I just wanted to clarify that
Okay.
for Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so I guess that's it for questions. We have one proclamation tonight, and that's for Black History Month. Whereas Black History Month is an opportunity to acknowledge and honor the historic and present contributions of Black Canadians and recognize their significant contributions made to Canada. And whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by Black Canadians to our collective economic, cultural, spiritual, social, and political development. And whereas the town of Shelburne recognizes and values the significant contributions and advances that Black Canadians have made and continue to make to Canadian society, and recognize the quest of Black Canadians for equal opportunity and freedom from discrimination in Canada. And whereas the town of Shelburne's establishment of a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee will identify ways to eliminate barriers and ensure systemic changes are made to promote equity and inclusion in our community. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Wade Mills, on behalf of council, do hereby proclaim February 2023 as Black History Month in the town of Shelburne and encourage all residents to celebrate our diverse heritage and culture and continue our efforts to make Shelburne an inclusive community for all. And then tied to that, we have a request to raise the Pan-African flag on Wednesday, February the 1st at 10 a.m. And that requires a resolution of council. So if any member would be so inclined, Councillor Bonato, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Gashardi. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay. Council inquiries. Councillor Bonato.
I'd like to take some time away from the fire board if it's possible. My father is in palliative care. My mother is 86 years old. It's quite an issue down there. So if I could respectfully take some time away from the fire board to look after family matters, I would like to do so with council's indulgence. And I know that leaves us one short on the fire board, but I'm hoping someone else from council can step up into that position for me. That's one of the reasons why I also stepped away from the NVCA. And I was very happy when Kyle wanted to be on, Councillor Fegan wanted to be the member there. It gives me some time to step away and spend some time with a family, with a parent that's quite aged and is on his last legs, if I can say it that way.
Well, sorry to hear that, but completely understandable. And I think staff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we would need is a resolution from council to appoint somebody to kind of fill that vacancy, at least on an interim basis. So what I would suggest is that when we get to the notice of motion section, if somebody would like to make a motion, and Councillor Bonato, I'm assuming you'd like that to take place effective
immediately.
Okay. Yeah. So that being the case, with the indulgence of council, as long as nobody objects, we can consider that notice of motion tonight without delaying that to the next meeting. So when we get to that point in the agenda, we can kind of go through the process. But thanks for bringing that forward. And again, sorry to hear about the situation. Okay, any other council inquiries, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I just have one. And it's with regards to Shelburne baseball. Hearing a variety of different items related to this. So is there any way we can have staff provide any further clarity?
Denise?
Thank you, Mayor Mills. So I had advised council today that we had received a number of questions from community members. And it was quite just generic that they understood as parents that the 2023 season for Shelburne Minor Ball would not be proceeding. And what they were being told is that there were issues with the town of Shelburne. I had provided council with a copy of a response email to the organization, providing clarification that since September of this year, we've been asking for the 2022 fees to be paid, which they had not been. We also outlined that the allocation policy and an email had been sent regarding that, clarified that any organizations in non-good standing financially would not be provided with field review or field options for 2023. We also clarified in the past that the town has always had a non-resident fee surcharge, that there's nothing illegal about that. And we also provided the organization or the one person with links should they wish to take their concerns or questions to the province with respect to non-resident fees. Additionally, we had been asked that we should be refunding because of the illegal non-resident fees prior years. So I think 2017 to 2019, which both myself and the treasurer had responded we would not be doing that. So really that was the heart of the issue. We just wanted to make sure that the parents were aware of those particular issues with respect to non-payment in particular. And we have received another email this afternoon. I did that the fees were paid for 2022. So that would be then, eligibility for 2023 is a non-issue, but sort of that was the background. I will be providing council with a copy of the follow-up email that the town sends tomorrow as well, based on the email we've sent today. And I just wanted to make sure, because I know a number of members of council have been contacted by residents just asking for some clarification, because again, they didn't understand what was happening, and we wanted to ensure that the town not receiving payment was understood.
Okay. Councilor Bonato.
And just one more inquiry. I'm wondering, in a situation with the elderly, especially the residents of Simon Street, William Street, getting to the commercial plaza and having the opportunity to shop, is there any chance that discussions with Grey County busing, with the busing system, if we could have additional stops put in that area? Maybe the CEO can enlighten us on that.
Certainly, Councillor Bonato, through Mayor Mills. The review of stops is always possible, and we can certainly have that conversation with Grey County. There will be a report on the weekend service on the next agenda for council as it is aligned with the budget. However, I just wanted to clarify, as we put in previous reports, there are a number of challenges with respect to getting into the plaza, because the plaza owner does not in any of their commercial properties allow transit onto the property. Additionally, the challenge is that the roads around that area are unassumed, meaning the town does not have jurisdiction over them, which would mean we can't be having a third party drive on them without providing them with significant insurance coverage, which is not something we're able to do. So the recourse is that we would have to look at, to get near the plaza, all the surrounding roads, which we either had control of or the county does, or MTO. So again, I'll address this in the report next week, but certainly if we want to add a stop within the town, it's not a problem. The only issue with how many stops we have is that it can't impact, at least during the weekday, the ability of Grey County's transit service to make Orangeville, according to their schedule, to connect with the GO. That's about it. So that's just a lot of background, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Any other inquiries? Okay, all right. Going to reorganize the agenda just slightly. The closed session that's on the agenda was scheduled to be towards the end of the evening. We do have a guest for that, so I'm going to suggest that we move that forward. Can I have a motion that according to section 239 sub 2 sub B of the Municipal Act, the council enter into closed session for personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees? Moved by Deputy Mayor Hall, seconded by Councillor Fegan. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so we'll just give staff a minute to move